the power utility recently announced its intention to increase tariffs by 32% in 2023. The National Energy Regulator of South Africa is expected to make a decision on Eskom's tariff hike application by the 24th of December. Weighing in on this or joining us to weigh in on this is OUTA Parliamentary and Energy Advisor Liz McDaid. Liz, a very good morning to you. So while there's no firm commitment on when load shedding will ease, Regulator believes that the power utility is doing its absolute best to avoid a total shutdown when that question was put to him.
Well, I actually looked at my, good morning to you and your listeners. I looked at the app and it doesn't have anything beyond stage 8. And what we heard this morning, again, it's starting to, you have to be a mathematician in order to know what's happening. But it looks like out of the 46 gigs, about half of it is now offline or overall, and they're trying to scramble to put it back together. So the big question is, who pays for all this load shedding? Because what we see is that Mr. Regulator spoke about the diesel generators, the open cycle gas turbines, which are running on diesel, running full speed, and that's going to be a huge cost. So the question is, who pays for that? And the normal way the tariff works is that Eskom will come back to the National Energy Regulator to ask for further increases. And what we're sitting with at the moment is an application by Eskom to the regulator to ask for, as you said, a 30% increase. So it's clear that as we hear what Eskom is saying right now, that that's not going to be the end of the increases. So OUTA has looked through more than 300 pages of the application, trying to come up with a response which can help the regulator to try and rein in the costs of electricity.
So with that, it's safe to say that OUTA is against this move by Eskom. Taking a look at the app, Eskom Saposh, we've had 1,564 hours of load shedding, 65 days of load shedding today. And these public hearings are being held this week by the energy regulator. And so the public does have a say in this, right? So it's not like we are laying ducks.
Well, the thing is, everybody should be mobbing that regulator. We should be shouting and screaming. OUTA is presenting tomorrow. That's when there's public hearings. But every citizen in South Africa should be on the phone to NERSA demanding that they do something. Because this needs, one of the questions they're asking is how should they deal with load shedding? And let me just give you a short, you've just spoken about the amount of hours of load shedding. And you will also know that many people in South Africa are paying a fixed charge per month for their electricity. When Eskom doesn't give you electricity, you are still paying that charge. Why? So one of the things when the regulator says 65% of the availability of electricity that we have in the country, then you should pay for 65%, not 100% of whatever monthly charge you are paying for, or even per kilowatt charge. When you are sitting with 6 hours, 7 hours of no electricity, which is roughly what I worked out stage 6 is, then why are we paying for having no electricity? And these are the kinds of issues that NERSA needs to deal with. Why is it? Because we are all paying. Every time that you have your switches are going off and on in your house, that's wearing them out. They're not supposed to go on and off all the time. And eventually they break. Their life comes to an end earlier than anticipated. And therefore, we as the people of South Africa should be saying to the regulator, enough. Eskom can't keep doing this.
I'd like for us to expand on the regulator in a few seconds, but you mentioned something that you've worked it out in terms of what stage 6 means, that's 6 to 7 hours of no electricity a day. So Eskom says stage 6 is a shortage of 6,000 megawatts of generating capacity, a lot of technical talk, but for the everyday South African, that's about what, 4 outages a day?
3 to 4 outages. Each outage, 2.5 hours. I'd say we're all having to become very good at maths in this world of no power, and the calculators won't work either because they run on electricity. So we're all going to have to stretch our brains. But the issue, I think, some of these solutions are we got to be a bit more creative. And when the Regulator was speaking about talking to business, he didn't mention civil society. And yet in 2008, I think it was, when we had the last very big load shedding, or the beginning of it all, there were committees set up in provinces of civil society, Eskom, local government, province, just to kind of brainstorm what's the solution, what can we do, what can we implement. And Eskom implemented efficiency measures. They swapped out light bulbs, they swapped out stoves, they did things. And I think there's a similar creativity needed here that is not on the table yet. They just seem to be doing the same thing and expecting different results. And of course, we know what that is a definition of.
He also mentioned that the crisis committee is working well, and implementing recommendations might take time, though. This is the crisis committee that the president announced a few weeks ago. Wonder what you made of that.
Well, I was puzzled because I know that it's a group of civil society who wrote to Gwedi Mantashe, the Minister of Energy, whose job it is actually to make sure we have enough energy. And we asked for the full IRP renewable energy quota, as it was, to be kickstarted, to get it going. And that's about 13, if I'm standing to be correct, about 13 gigawatts of energy, which could be put on within the next 2 years or so. But what we've seen is only about 3,000 megawatts or so, 4.5. It's not the full amount. So I don't know what's going on there. What we also see is Eskom seeking to build another 3 gigawatts of gas. But they've just gone on about how expensive it is to buy diesel and gas because of the Ukraine-Russia war. So why are we going that route? And maybe, just in case you were feeling really sorry for Eskom, I mean, one does feel sorry for the current management, but in case you were feeling too sorry for them, remember that we have been having international meetings on climate change for 27 years, and Eskom can't even refer us to a gigawatt of renewable energy that they have built in that time. So they've carried on building coal. They've carried on running their old coal-fired power stations, and now the whole country is having to bear the brunt and the costs of that decision.
The Deputy President, appearing before Parliament, said there will be no privatization of Eskom, yet you hear in some sectors of society a big push towards that. What is your position on that?
I don't know who would want to buy Eskom. I mean, who's going to buy a whole lot of generators that don't work? And quite frankly, probably are never going to ever generate enough money to cover the costs that's maintenance that's being poured into them. I think what we need is a whole mix of new generation, community-owned, socially owned, local government-owned, Eskom-owned if they can get their act together. But basically, we need to be generating a lot more energy, business-owned. Everybody, come to the party, build your power stations and feed them into the grid.
You know that relationship where you never know where you stand, because you'll hear words like, we can give you no firm commitment on when we'll ease load shedding, but then they also make a lot of demands in that relationship, because then you'll also hear the proverbial, please use electricity sparingly. So when we go back to the energy regulator and these public hearings that are being held, just from your experience, how involved are South Africans? Like you said, people should actually be picking up the phone and making their voice heard, right, and making their submissions known to NERSA. Just how involved are we in trying to break this very unhealthy relationship?
So pre-COVID, we actually used to have rooms full. There was 2 days would be in each province just about to hear all the people who had something to say. But apparently there are very few people, sort of less than 10 who want to actually speak to NERSA this time. So I would really urge people to write and demand an extension and to demand to have a voice, because that's where we can sit and moan. We can go, and it's, yes, an abusive relationship. Often people go moan outside, but actually we have an opportunity. We have a regulator, and we should go there and make our voices heard and hold that regulator to account. That regulator's role is to make sure to look after both current generations and future generations in terms of energy prices and energy access. So, and the way that the prices are going, this is not going to result in energy access, particularly for those poor and vulnerable sectors of society.
Liz McDaid, OUTA Parliamentary and Energy Advisor, thank you very much for availing yourself this morning.